raising Jewish children in this country.
Who brought your
in which
children
you
into this? What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this. If you Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're going to allow racist and bigoted attacks against one of your commentators.
Katie, I was giving you the chance to respond. If you want me to do it for you, I'm happy to do that.
Bro, look at her face. She's about to cry. Cenk almost made this woman cry.
So Israel does not get a pass on committing another genocide because Jewish people suffered the Holocaust. What happened in the Holocaust was
you don't get a pass for calling them
horrible. Hold on. So what happened in the Holocaust and all the pogroms were disgusting.
What did she just say? You better check your citizenship application to make sure that everything was legal and correct. This would be such a fucking scandal like 10 years ago. Do you guys realize this?
Well, the one thing that I would hope people stop doing is pointing out that he's Muslim, because honestly, who cares? What does that have to do with anything regarding his policies and how he will run New York City? So that should be called out from the get. It's wrong. Nobody should do it. Simultaneously, yes, a lot of the things you said are alarming to me. I do wish, like, dude, just come out and condemn Hamas. It's not that hard. It's very common sense, in my opinion. What's alarming to me about Mamdani are his policies.
So, in case you guys didn't know, Stephen Miller has a wife. That is Stephen Miller's wife in the middle. She is now a podcaster. She has her own podcast. I think the world needed one more podcaster, and she decided to become one. And now she's going on Slop Piers Morgan panels. You know, if you're just living totally under a bridge, this is Stephen Miller. It's this guy. He is a bit of a Nazi, like he's on the spectrum of Nazism. I don't know where he is, but he's on the spectrum of Nazism. And this is his wife right here in the middle on a fucking Piers Morgan panel. What are we doing here, you guys? What is she doing on a Piers Morgan panel? Why are you here? Like, why are you on a Piers Morgan panel? Can someone explain that to me? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you here? You have no business on a Piers Morgan panel.
And if we're going to talk about that, I feel like I can pontificate on it. But with regard to him being Muslim, I go back to, again, who cares? And people should stop calling that out. It's wrong.
But I guess it's relevant if he is saying that Islamophobia is endemic in the United States. I mean, do you believe that it is endemic in the United States? A hatred of people for their Muslim faith?
I don't think it's endemic in the United States, but it does exist. Racism exists. Sexism exists. I don't think it's endemic. And I think that kind of fear-mongering, rage-baiting is literally tearing us apart, which is why I want to see it stop when it comes to his religion as well. So, listen, he said a lot of things that I don't like. This is America. He's allowed to say those things. Again, I go back to what I wish people would attack him on specifically are his policies, because that's where I believe he has exceptional vulnerability. Like, if you don't like the things that he's saying about Gaza or Hamas or the Jews, don't double down by saying those things about him being Muslim. That's my opinion.
Never said it. The Jews? What? Excuse me? I feel like I've been pretty plugged in, and I haven't heard any Zohran Mamdani quotes about the Jews. What the fuck? Excuse me?
Anything about the Jews. We should just be clear about the fact that he's never said anything about the Jews. That's a way that it's just a phrase that gets imposed on him because people can't find anything to condemn. Yeah, but that's not saying anything about the Jews. Whatever his views are on Hamas, that's a completely different conversation. We should just use words carefully and to be like, if we're going to have a constructive discourse.
It is insanely irresponsible to say, come on, it doesn't matter what he says about the Jews. And then someone's like, he didn't say anything about the Jews. And then to respond to that by saying, well, I just wish he would condemn Hamas. Like, these are very different things.
It's important not to put words in other people's mouths. So anytime you hear Mamdani and you hear the phrase, the Jews followed by it, that's typically a smear because Mamdani has never expressed any views that are anti-Semitic. If his political views about Israel and Palestine are problematic, let's debate the merits of those without suggesting that he's saying something about the Jews when he never did.
Oh, okay. What
I think
about
that's
this
fair
one,
enough,
though?
Omar.
He has a rap
But
song.
I feel like we should probably stop saying the Jews. It doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? It feels off. Like whenever I hear the Jews in a sentence, it's like satire.
I was going to say he has a rap song where he celebrates the Holy Land Five, who have gone to jail for sending millions of dollars to Hamas. How do you think that would make a Jewish person feel? Probably not great.
Not great, Jillian.
I've never heard of that song.
When Israel slaughters. Hold on.
Okay, I mean, it's.
In comes Cenk. Here we go. He's about to come in hot.
It
slaughters
exists.
our children over and over and over again, and all we do is and Piers, this is really important. It's not that the American people are Islamophobic. It's that American media, mainstream media, and almost all the Israeli supporters are the most bigoted, racist people in the country. They despise Muslims. All they do is smear Muslims 24/7 while pretending that they're concerned about bigotry, but only when it affects their beloved Israel. So they're like, oh my God, I'm so concerned about anti-Semitism. Oh, you said something slightly true, actually very true about Israel, but it hurt my feelings. You're an anti-Semite, fire him, cancel him, etc. This is all thuggery. There's a bunch of pro-Israeli forces inside America. They've taken over our Congress. They've taken over mainstream media. And not only do they try to smear.
Oh, he's going Zog. He's doing the Zog thing.
Cancel, fire, and arrest anyone who criticizes Israel. But on top of that,
that sounded like we're approaching anti-Semitism with that. Like we're getting real close to it. You're like right up to the line at that point.
They now demand that you be racist and bigoted against Muslims, and it's so
if
hilarious.
You want to be specific with your words,
because Mamdani, hold on, let me finish. So let me finish.
Oh my God.
So now they go, okay. Even though Mamdani has never said anything anti-Semitic, nothing against Jews, and even though the majority of Jews, according to polling, are supporting Mamdani, 67% of younger Jewish Americans in New York, that's under 45, are supporting Mamdani, we're going to lie anyway, and we're going to say, you know what, he's a dirty Muslim, and you should hate him for supporting Muslims. And that's what almost all of the Israeli supporters are doing, almost all of mainstream media, and that sick, disgusting Andrew Cuomo, who's as bigoted as it gets.
Today's show is sponsored by Oxford Natural. All right,
now
Katie.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Why is it that every time someone wants to criticize Mamdani, it immediately comes back to the Jews and the anti-Israel movement instead of actually talking about his viewpoints, which is that he
Nobody
wants to
said
make
Jews. You just said it. You always do that. We say Israel, you say Jews. We say Israel is a...
Oh no, she's not ready for the big time. She's undercooked. She's not ready for a fucking Piers Morgan panel. Like, start off small, for Christ's sakes. Do like viewer calls. Just take viewer calls and debate them for a little bit. Don't start on a fucking Piers Morgan panel.
Government, please don't make it about Jewish Americans. And you come back and go, you have to make it about Jewish Americans. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?
Is Israel a Jewish state? Yes or no?
Yeah.
First of all, okay, so Saudi Arabia is a Muslim state, and you can criticize it all day long, all day long. There's no special protection.
Because what you're doing is you're decoding language to attack American
Jewish state or a Muslim
state, and to say that we should not be here and we should not be in existence, and that you would be happy for other people like Mamdani to use it.
I want Israel to be safe.
Nothing of the sort.
Nonsense. You're totally lying. It's very normal for a Miller to be completely and utterly lying. That's not true. We want Israel to be a safe haven for Jews, 1967 borders. But you guys say, no, more Palestinian land. Take Gaza, take the West Bank, take southern Lebanon. Your greed knows no bounds. And by the way, you and your husband are supposed to be working for America, not for Israel. I think you're betraying this country.
All right, Cenk, let Katie...
Piers,
right,
if I could just jump in here
Katie.
on a quick note.
Omar, I'll come to you, but let Katie finish her point, then I'll come to you. Katie.
No, Piers, quite frankly, I'm really sick and tired of this racist, bigoted rhetoric that comes from people like you against my husband, against my family, and my children. I am raising...
Bro, she talks like Stephen Miller. She, talks like Stephen Miller. Like, She's like emulating him. Does she study Stephen Miller's like media appearances? She fucking talks like him. It's like the same like cadence in her speech.
What are the damages for Americans? Where do I even begin? Where do I even start? We used to have a functioning public school system in this country. Then we had open borders. Now our schools are in chaos and disarray. We need hundreds of translators. Nobody's learning how to read or write. An entire generation of Americans, multiple generations, in fact, have been robbed of educational opportunities.
Jewish children in this country.
Who brought your
in which
children
you
into this? What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're going to allow racist and
There's no way. Dude, why would you do your first debate on a Piers Morgan panel? Of all the venues to choose for your first like high profile political debate, why would you go on Piers Morgan and then cry? Like, she sounds like she's on the verge of tears. She literally sounds like she's about to fucking cry.
they get attacked. I am raising Jewish children in this country.
Who brought your
in which
children
you
into this? What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're
I didn't even catch that. What a weirdo.
You're going to allow racist and bigoted. I am raising Jewish children in this country.
Who brought your
in which
children
you
into this? What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're going to allow racist and bigoted attacks against one of your commentators just for the sake that he will not.
No, hang on.
She does the upwards inflection. That's what she's doing. And it's like Stephen Miller.
Entire cities. Look at Los Angeles. Once a paradise of safe.
It's like always an upwards inflection.
Security and prosperity. Entire neighborhoods occupied and controlled by foreign gangs.
And then she does the same kind of talk.
What a weirdo.
Piers, I'm going to be done with this if you're going to allow racist and bigoted attacks against one of
like what is this? Why do they talk like each other?
your commentators just for the sake that he will not.
No, hang on.
Speaking.
Casey, to be clear, Casey, to be clear,
he inserted a line that says the Miller's lie. Is that not coded language? Or therefore we are Jewish? Come on, Piers. Where are you?
What?
Where are you standing?
God, you're so
Casey,
pathetic.
if I can speak.
Everything's your shield is
listen.
anti-Semite. Fire him, cancel him, cancel him,
Cenk,
America.
Cenk,
oh my God, Israel's
Cenk,
feelings have been
Cenk.
hurt. Why don't you work for this country?
Can we try and get
this country instead of
all right,
Israel?
can we try? All right, can we please? All right, let's stop the ad hominem attacks. Let's try and get this back to a more civilized debate, which is actually about the likely incoming mayor of New York. Katie, I was giving you the chance to respond. If you want me to do it for you, I'm happy to do that.
Bro, look at her face. She's about to cry. Cenk almost made this woman cry. Yeah, the pouting, you know, like she's just never in this kind of setting, I assume. She's never in a setting where somebody can directly confront her over her husband's general douchebaggery.
But normally in a panel discussion, if someone makes...
You know,
yeah, I agree, and you shouldn't be interrupted. So, yeah, Katie, let me just ask you, separate, let's not get into ad hominem stuff. It's honestly, I think the viewers are sick of it. Let me just ask you, Katie, what is your fundamental opposition to Mamdani? Because my view of Mamdani is he's very charismatic. He's a skillful politician. He has reined back on some of the more inflammatory things. He undeniably said the stuff he said about the NYPD would be for some people disqualifying, frankly, in a city like New York. But he's managed to come through that by reining back on some of that stuff. And he is, as Cenk Uygur rightly points out, he has a remarkable popularity with young Jewish New Yorkers. I mean, it is remarkable that for someone who people have branded anti-Semitic, a lot of Jewish New Yorkers simply don't agree. They want to vote for him. So he is what he is. I also think, as Gillian pointed out, that probably a more obvious stick to beat him with politically are his views, which are pretty socialist. And what is fascinating about this politically, looking at the totality and potentially a future general election, is if you have a progressive socialist like Mamdani who wins in New York, is that the way the Democratic Party is now going to go? And does that have any chance of winning against?
You know, I just have I have concerns about Mamdani. I really like him as a candidate. That's where he has really impressed me. But there's a big old question mark about how he's going to govern, how he will be perceived, how he will be depicted, and whether or not he can withstand the pressure that he currently faces. Like, there's a lot riding on him. He's got the weight of the fucking entire left-wing populist movement that is emergent right now. He's kind of like the face of that. Great candidate if it weren't for those pesky policies. So again, like when I went through his policies on the stream, like 90% of his policies I thought were like, great, that's fine. And then there was like 10% that I just didn't like. I do have concerns that they're going to use him to like tar the Democratic Party. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. When will he be inaugurated? He wins January, right? I don't know. I don't know how it works in New York. He'll be depicted like every other Democrat is, moderate or otherwise, a communist, terrorist-loving groomer. Well, the difference is that he is kind of a socialist. There's like 100 videos you can find of him saying like, I am a socialist. His rhetoric has been amazing compared to the leftists who hate the party. He said he wanted to be a partner to Hochul, and I thought that was amazing messaging. Yeah, that's the thing that impresses me about him.
Against what would likely be another MAGA candidate in 2028. So these are big picture issues that will come out of a Mamdani victory. But from your perspective, Katie, what is your fundamental opposition to Mamdani becoming New York mayor?
I want to start off with, do you agree when your guest says that the Millers always lie? Because that's what your guest on your show just said, is that the Millers...
Oh my God. She is so out of her league. She has no business on this panel. She sounds like a fifth grader.
always lie.
Your previous guest said something mean about me, and you just let it happen.
And so now I'll continue into saying Mamdani, just as you said here, is a socialist. He is someone who is going to drive New York to the bottom. I'm excited for him to win because he'll prove to every other single large city in our country that what you will see is failure, what you will see is high crime, what you will see is murders.
It's the upwards inflection, man. She sounds like him. She literally sounds like she's studied him. That's what I think. I think she literally studied his media appearances.
What you will see is a prominent city in our country fall into complete disrepair, and you will see large amounts of capital and tax dollars exit the city immediately, because what people are voting for is their own downfall. When you play into identity politics, as he's done, when you stand behind a podium and your first comment is, oh my gosh, my aunt on the train, instead of talking about all those who lost their lives on 9/11, then you're doing something wrong, Piers. But I will say,
you know what? Maybe I'm judging her too harshly, because this actually might be normal. Because I think Esme, for sure, adopted some of the language that I've used over the years. They both probably have the same speech coach. Well, that's fair too. Yeah.
Sit here and say that for the reasons in which he is wrong and which he will drive New York.
I, of course, did not adopt any of Esme's language because I'm a man and I don't speak womanly. It's the other way around. Okay.
Into failure is again the same reason why people on your show, instead of arguing the merits, as you say, of his opinions, they're going to sit here and use attacks on my husband and myself instead of debating us on our values and our opinions. It is gross, it is racist, and it is bigoted. And I will not join your show again if you...
Your values
suck. Am I right?
That's what I'm debating.
This is so ridiculous. Yeah.
Well,
I will not join your show again.
It is gross, it is racist, and it is bigoted. And I will not join your show again if you...
Your values
to that
suck. That's what I'm debating.
This is so ridiculous. Yeah.
Well, Katie, let me just make it clear.
If I can jump here, Piers.
No, Cenk, stay out of this. Katie, let me just respond to that. Katie, normally, when someone makes an ad hominem attack on another panelist, that panelist is on the receiving end, gives it back, right? And you've chosen instead.
He said, you're a baby. You just ran to me with your binky in your mouth, crying that your older brother like pinched you.
it seems to me, to want me to do that for you. I don't mind doing that, right? But to me, you could easily respond. You're perfectly skilled and capable enough to respond to what Cenk said about you, and you've done that.
He said, grow up, lady. That's the subtext. He said, grow the fuck up. I am not your dad, here to save you, is what he's saying right now.
And you've argued, very passionately why Mamdani would be a New York mayor. I'm not taking sides here. I actually don't like any of the ad hominem attacks that come on the show. But it's interesting to note that there have been an increasing number of very ad hominem attacks on Mamdani, and a lot of it has had a whiff of genuine Islamophobia. And I don't think it means that any of us have to endorse that or anything to actually accept that that is what's been happening. And I see the same thing happen with Jewish candidates in American politics. I see a stench of anti-Semitism from certain quarters towards Jewish candidates. But we certainly see this with Mamdani, and it's ugly, and it's horrible. And
I'm a guest on your show. She's used to like going into the White House, wearing fucking fancy clothes, taking 5 hours to get ready, people fucking doing shit for her and, like opening doors for her. And then she goes on a Piers Morgan panel with Cenk, Uygur, who reads her the riot act, and she just crumbles like a baby. This is fucking amazing, you guys. How when else are you going to get a glimpse into someone's pathetic psychology in this kind of way?
It shouldn't be. Yeah, you are a guest on my show, and I appreciate you coming on the show, and I like you coming on the show.
And I'm saying two other guests on your show are welcome to participate in these anti-Semitic attacks that is so permeating on CNN and MSNBC.
This is so ridiculous. I'm sorry. I have to jump in here. Somebody criticizing you personally is not an anti-Semitic attack. If somebody says that you are lying, that is not an attack on Jews. That is an attack on you. And just stop hiding behind identity. This is all the snowflake behavior that the right is supposedly criticizing the left for, that you're simply repeating here. Yes, Stephen Miller is a destructive force in American society. That is not an attack on Jews. That is no reference to his identity. This is an attack on him individually, and just deal with the merits of this case. And also when it comes to Mamdani and all the stuff that he said,
let's go there.
Whatever you want to call him, you have to be clear about the fact.
Bring us the Israeli state, right? That's how we got here in the first place. Let's rewind.
Mamdani, and we should be clear about what Mamdani said in relation to policing in New York and Israel.
How we got here was Jillian very perfectly pointed out that we should not use politics to get here, and immediately we went to the state of Israel.
Of people, no, I'm sorry. The state of Israel is not identity politics. That is a foreign government that is engaged in genocide and war crimes. And we're allowed to criticize that without you pulling identity politics into this. It is utterly unrelated. And Mamdani, by the way, he was not asked about 9/11 and just randomly decided to drag his aunt into this. He's talking about Islamophobia specifically in a context in which he is under relentless Islamophobic attacks, including by Andrew Cuomo. And in that context, he brought up the story of his aunt and the fear that she felt living in New York City. That is a legitimate.
Bro, I just we need to get a poly market bet going. Is Cenk going to be audited by the IRS in the next year? We need to get like a pool going.
Part of the conversation, and you pretending that this was comments about him having disregard for the real victims of 9/11 who were actually died on that day is such dishonest smearing against him. And I'll say all the references that Mamdani has made in reference to policing and the IDF is simply pointing out factually that there is collaboration there.
I go to New York a lot. I love New York. And there's no doubt to me that what he has said on the record, Mamdani, about the NYPD is deeply offensive to a lot of New Yorkers. And there's no getting away from that. Him saying that about the NYPD, we have to make it clear, when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF. That is a really insensitive thing to say.
That is a reference to the fact an actual program where New York City Police go to Israel on the dime of the ADL or in collaboration with programs through the ADL so they can train with the Israeli police and the Israeli military. An apartheid repressive state should not be training American police. And yes, some of those brutal tactics do come back to the United States and impact Americans. So simply pointing a factual statement about the fact that there is a problematic program there of collaboration, I think is fair. I think pointing out, frankly, it seems like a statement that should not even be in dispute or question. I don't know what the controversy is. Statistics in America show consistently that brown people and black people are stopped by police more frequently. So saying that there's a racism problem, that's not an indictment of policing altogether. Just that's simply pointing out that there are problems that need to be fixed. You're never going to address these problems if you're afraid to mention them.
Omar, he's not saying that there is some racism. He said the NYPD is racist, anti-queer, and a major threat to public safety. What we need is to hashtag defund the NYPD. Those are his words in June 2020. Now, he may want to have a revisionist view of his own words. He may have reined back on some of those words, but those words exist in a post he made on social media. That was his belief. He didn't just say some of the NYPD were racist or homophobic or a threat to public safety. He said the NYPD itself in totality was. And again, if you live in New York and you rely on the NYPD to police your streets, or if you work in the NYPD, that is an incredibly insensitive and inflammatory thing to say. Let me get straight to the point. Gold is up by around 40% this year. That's not speculation, that's reality. And if some of your savings aren't diversified into gold, you're missing.
That's one thing. Now, I think sometimes
your views are one thing. I don't buy into that, Omar. I don't buy into that. I'm sorry. It shouldn't make any difference.
You don't think that when you're running for office and you get an opportunity to phrase yourself more eloquently, that doesn't count?
Hang on. No, sorry. I think what counts is what you honestly believe in any given moment. He clearly believed that, or he wouldn't have posted it. The idea that when you run for office, suddenly you change all your opinions, I don't buy that. I actually like to judge politicians on what they have previously said.
I don't know. This is like been a meme in politics for a really long time. Like the idea of like flip-flopping, but I think you would like hope to see politicians change their rhetoric to accommodate their constituents, you know, like that seems like normal and expected for a democracy, right?
When they were civilians, because it's often more enlightening about what they really think about things. And if I was in the NYPD, I'd be very concerned about Mamdani, given what he said publicly about the NYPD. And I don't think that's intellectually dishonest. I think it's assessing what Mamdani said in real time as his honestly held belief about the New York Police Department. So there are things that, look, like I say, he's charismatic. He's clearly very popular, notably amongst young Jews in New York. I think that's really interesting. He's likely to be the mayor of New York City, but he thoroughly deserves proper scrutiny of what his views have been. And I think his views about the NYPD are inflammatory. And, you know, he's got to address that. I just hold fire panel for a moment. I want to bring in now a Florida Congressman, Randy Fine. Randy Fine, welcome to Uncensored.
What is this lolcow doing in here?
But what is your view of Mamdani? I think you want him deported, is that right?
I do. I mean, look, I think Mamdani lied in his naturalization application. He did not share he was a member of DSA. He did not.
Oh, my God.
Not share his affiliation and his love for the 5 Muslim terrorists. And I think that was dishonest, and I don't think he should be a citizen. I think that needs to be investigated, as we need to do for many people who've come in over the last 30 years. One of the most fascinating things about this election in New York is Mamdani is losing overwhelmingly among those who were born in the United States. His only chance of becoming mayor is because of those who grew up with values other than being American. And I think that's something that should alarm everyone.
But the way you phrase that, you know, if I can pick you up on that, you know, what do you mean? I mean, you have to be born in America to be an American. Is that your position?
No, but by the way, there's a reason the framers of our Constitution said that to be president of the United States, you had to be born here. There is something about growing up here, going through your childhood, being inculcated with American values, becoming part of that melting pot that made America great. When my family came here over 100 years ago, they came here because they loved America, not because they wanted to change it. They wanted to become part of the American social fabric. But what you see in New York is people who have come here not to become part of America, but to change America. And that is, there's nothing wrong with America, and there's nothing that fundamentally needs to be changed. This is the greatest country in the history of the world. And
isn't this just like the perfect encapsulation of like reactionary politics? I mean, I do want to see him go back and forth with Cenk a little bit here.
What is your response to that?
Yeah, no, I don't mind because I agree that there are barbarians inside the gate, and that's Randy Fine. Randy Fine is a sick terrorist sympathizer. In fact, if he wants America to do terrorism on Israel's behalf, he has said we should nuke Gaza. That's killing millions of innocent children and human beings and civilians, but he doesn't care. He only cares about Israeli lives. By the way, the Israelis have murdered now nearly a dozen Americans in the West Bank. No accountability from our government. And people like Randy Fine say we owe Israel. We owe Israel a genocide. We owe Israel $300 billion. We owe them no accountability at all when they kill American citizens. They had a pervert Israeli government official that came here in Vegas and tried to rape our children, and we let him go. That's insane. Randy Fine, are you asking for the sick Israeli government?
Kenny, did you just say that Cenk should be deported in my YouTube chat? Is that what you just said? And Hassan, you want to deport them? What do you want to deport them for?
To return the pedophile so he could face justice.
They're American citizens. Where are you going to deport them? The fuck are you talking about?
Here? No, Randy Fine represents Israel, not America. Everybody knows that. He also said we should starve all the Gazans. So he's right.
Well, I think you should be deported. How about that?
There's a sickness inside our government. AIPAC and the Israeli lobby have given to 90% of Congress. They've given him $500,000, and that was a giant waste because he works for Israel already. So, Randy, we're all sick of your terrorist sympathies towards Israel. They have committed 75 October 7th. Their civilian kill ratio is 83%, worse than Hamas, worse than any terrorist organization. They have murdered 256 journalists, more than all other conflicts combined. They murdered 104 people today, including 46 children. They burned them alive. And we're sick of Israeli terrorism, and we're sick of people like you forcing good Americans. I love this country. I didn't come here to be a occupied territory of Israel. I came here because I love America and the freedom and the equality and the justice that comes with it. If you think your grandparents who came here
occupied territory of Israel, he's spending too much time with Anna is what's happening.
Were not loyal to America, that's your business. But no, most of the people that come here come because we absolutely love this country and not Israel. Go serve. Why don't you go to the Knesset, brother? Everybody knows you love Israel and you despise Palestinians and you love Israeli terrorism. So why don't you move to Tel Aviv already?
Okay. All right, Cenk. Let Randy Fine respond. Randy.
Well, thank you, Piers, and thank you for the surprise debate. I actually enjoy that. Look, there's a concept in Islam called taqiyya where you're allowed to lie in advance of your political views. And you just got a great crash course. All of those things were nonsense. But the notion that I am more loyal to Israel than I am the United States is part of it. Israel is fighting a war of civilization on our behalf. The reason we need a Jewish state of Israel is because of the Muslims that surround it. And so I stand with Israel because I believe Israel is fighting the same fight that we have here in the United States, the same fight that people like Mamdani and Cenk, wealthy Muslims who move here in order to change the complex and the nature of our country, are going to do it. And I won't apologize for that. I am very proud of my views. I'm very proud of my faith. I'm proud to be the first member of Congress in the history of the United States to wear a yarmulke, which you may be able to see on my head. And I know that drives them crazy because we're not supposed to do that. But they gave me the nickname the Hebrew Hammer for a reason, and I'm not going to be afraid to use it.
But Randy Fine, when you said I don't give a shit, hang on, Cenk. Randy Fine, when you said I don't give a shit about Gazans, were you proud of that statement?
Well, I think the context there is Gaza attacked Israel on October 7th. Of the thousands of people who streamed across the border to kill every man, woman, and child that they could, many of them, thousands of them, were not, quote unquote, card carrying members of Hamas. And so when you start a war and you are losing the war, if you do not like what that is doing to you, then you surrender in that war. Gaza chose to be the enemy. Gaza chose to attack Western civilization. And no, I didn't
It wouldn't be a Piers Morgan panel without a good old-fashioned Israel-Gaza debate.
Care what happened. It was my view that if they didn't like it, they needed to surrender. Something, by the way, they still haven't done because yesterday the Gazans killed another IDF soldier in a place.
All right, we're going to skip past this and see if we get to any more spicy Katie Miller moments.
Okay, Katie Miller, I think it's now been confirmed that one IDF soldier died. Like initially reported it was 2. But either way, when you have the Qatari Prime Minister, they've been acting as mediators with this, when you have them confirming it was basically a violation by the Palestinian Party, Hamas, then they're acknowledging, even in the Arab world, that this latest flare-up was precipitated by the death of an IDF soldier. Now, people can argue about the scale of the response from Israel, but thankfully it has already stopped. Well, you can check your head, but I mean, the reality is they responded to the death of one of their soldiers. We may not like the scale of it, but that's what they responded to in this particular flare-up. The more important thing for me, Katie Miller, is that both sides at the moment.
Killing a third party is not a response to this.
Well, like I say, you may not like the scale of the
They
response.
murdered children because one of their SS soldiers was killed, and it wasn't even by Hamas. Are you kidding me, Piers? So they're occupying 53% of Gaza right now. So shouldn't they get the hell out of Gaza?
Yeah.
So one of their SS soldiers gets killed, and we're supposed to shed a tear for the occupiers? In reality, they murdered 46 children. They murdered 46 children today, Piers. I can't stand the terrorism of Israel.
Yeah, but you know what, Cenk? When you call the IDF SS soldiers and you compare them directly to the Nazis, and you know they're Jewish, I'm not Jewish, and I find that horrible.
No. Israel does. Hold on. Let me explain. So Israel does not get a pass on committing another genocide because Jewish people suffered the Holocaust. What happened in the Holocaust was disgusting.
You don't get a pass for calling them the SS.
Hold on. So what happened in the Holocaust and all the pogroms were disgusting.
What did she just say?
You don't get a pass for calling them
horrible.
the SS.
Hold on. So what happened in the Holocaust and all the pogroms.
You better check your citizenship application to make sure that everything was legal and correct. Did the wife of Donald Trump's top advisor just heavily imply that they were going to take a closer look at his immigration papers? This would be such a fucking scandal like 10 years ago. Do you guys realize this? This would have been like front page news for like a month just 10 years ago. That's fucking unbelievable, bro.
We're disgusting. That doesn't mean that Israel, pretending to represent Jews across the world, gets to commit another genocide.
What the dude? What?
Upon a totally innocent people and collective punishment and murdering children over and over again and go, I get to do it. I get to do a genocide. You don't get to do a genocide. There is no jail-free card.
You know what I get to do? All right, Cenk, what I get to do is invite every member of the panel to speak fairly and openly. And my question was directed to Katie. I mean, Katie, look, from my point of view,
you asked me about
anyone.
And they are. They're committing genocide.
Please let Katie speak.
60% of the kids they killed have sniper shots to the head or chest. They're literal terrorists.
Let Katie Miller speak. Cenk, let Katie speak. Katie.
I will just say this, Piers, this is my last time on this program. If you're going to invite open anti-Semitics to participate on your platform and not call it out for what it is, which is anti-Semitism,
I literally just called it out. I just called it out.
Literally, he just got done scolding Cenk, and she's like, "You need to fucking do something about this guy."
You're inviting him back, giving him the air.
What more do you want me to do?
Spew his hatred toward people like myself, toward people like my children, toward people like my family, and again, not debate the merits of the argument.
No one said your family. What kind of lunatic are you?
In the last segment with Rep. Randy Fine, what you said was he had said the word Muslim. He never once said the word Muslim.
He literally did. He fucking literally did, you dumb person.
You immediately turn it to identity politics, which are more than identity politics.
He did say the word Muslim. He did say Muslim. He did. I heard him. He did say it.
Oh, God, she's going to cry, bro. She's literally going to cry, man.
What you're doing by comparing the SS and the IDF is once again saying that the Israeli state, you're coding it for just saying Jews. You're saying that October 7th and what happened afterwards was not a warranted response.
Dude, Cenk, I kind of love it just because she's awful. You know, I would normally just really hate this behavior in a vacuum. But because she is such a baby, I just love the fact that Cenk is just compulsively interrupting her every time she speaks.
Let's not forget that there were suicide bombers that came from Gaza near daily into Israel. Let's not forget who held Israeli hostages, Was that all Hamas? No, that was also Gazan civilians. Why can't they find and return?
They weren't exactly given a choice, lady. That's kind of a fucked up, like Hamas didn't knock on their doors and say like, hey, we were wondering if you could keep an eye on this person. Z King with $5. At least we know why they're married now. Two fucking psychos fell in love. I mean, I don't know if she's a psycho, but like emotionally, she's a 13-year-old, 12, 13-year-old.
All of the bodies of the hostages. Why? We saw on video yesterday from an IDF drone that a body was recovered
because
and then
Israel was genociding Gaza, and you can't keep track of what's going on in Gaza when it's under relentless bombardment from the north to the south. I mean, it's incredible. We're looking at a dynamic in which literally Israeli soldiers are shooting children in the head. Snipers are doing it.
Were they all Hamas, or were some Gazans?
I would like to ask Katie. Katie, let me ask you a question. The thing I found offensive of what Randy Fine said, amongst other things, actually.
It's like pretty sociopathic to blame Gazan civilians for Hamas dropping off like hostages in their homes. Which isn't to say that the hostages themselves weren't mistreated by some of those Gazans. I'm sure that was the case. But they're not given a choice. Like, they're not, you know, they don't get an option to say, you know what, we don't really want to keep an eye on this. Like, you're not allowed to say no.
But his particular statement, in which he repeatedly referred to Gazans, not Hamas, I don't think that helps anybody in this debate. Hamas, we know what they are. They're an armed military and political power in Gaza. They do not represent every Gazan. And to try and constantly call the people that perpetrated October the 7th Gazans, I think it's wrong. Okay, good. Because I think it's wrong. In the same way.
If they said no, wouldn't Hamas kill them? Yeah, they didn't have a choice. It wasn't an option. They didn't ask them if they wanted to do it. They don't have a choice. What do you expect to happen?
I find it offensive when Cenk says, yeah, but Cenk says the IDF are the SS. I find that incredibly offensive, particularly given that they're Jewish.
Why? Right? Are they allowed to genocide? Why is that offensive?
Because you're comparing them directly to the people that waged the Holocaust against the Jewish people.
By the way, you could also call them Turks. You could also call them Ottomans. You could call them Serbs. You could call them members of Pol Pot's campaign. You can call them anything you like. They're all genocides. Now, the Holocaust was even worse. I get that. But at the same time, it is a genocide.
And frankly, when you just simply look at what is left of Gaza, have you seen the footage of it? There's nothing left there. There's complete and total destruction.
I think what's happening in Gaza is horrific.
And it's admitted to by Israeli leaders themselves. They're saying that they're trying to make Gaza unlivable for Palestinians. They're telling you it's a genocide.
I don't disagree. Omar, I don't disagree. And when I hear people like Smodrich and Ben-Gvir, I think they talk in genocidal language. I've classified it myself as ethnic cleansing. They've made no secret that they want to kick all the Palestinians out of Gaza. I think it's disgusting and reprehensible. And when the Israeli government officials we've had on try and pretend that their views don't matter and we should ignore Smodrich and Ben-Gvir, I say why? They're senior members of the government, for God's sake. So I have, as you know, both of you and Cenk both know, I've expressed increasingly critical views about the Israeli government strategy in Gaza all this year. But I prefer not to get into debates about this stuff where you shout over Katie Miller and start calling
He's such a bully to her, but I love it. He is such a bully to her, but I love it. Like, to be fair, Cenk is a kind of a bully to everybody. His whole thing is the Gish Gallop. That's what he does. Like, it's the filibuster in the Gish Gallop. He will muscle his way into the conversation, aggressively talk over them. And normally it like really annoys me when he does it because I'm like, God, bro, you need to grow up. Like, there's no way that you can have conversations with these people. Yeah, he also strawmans. That's true. But when he does it to her, it's just so funny because, like, this woman, she talks so much shit online. She fucking springboarded from being Stephen Miller's wife to a podcast host. And then she comes on Piers Morgan and just gets decimated.
IDF, the SS. I think it's just unnecessary. Now, going back to Katie Miller. Katie, do you think we're going to get a lasting peace?
Poor little genocide.
All right. Is your name Katie Miller, Cenk? No, it's not. You're not Katie Miller. Katie Miller, do you think we're going to get a lasting peace here or not?
I think we will, because again, this is a centuries-long war, as Jillian has said. that has persisted for many, many years.
It's biblical.
And for once we have a president who stands up and says, let's be done with this, who brings everyone together, all of the countries in the Middle East, to uphold a peace agreement. And whether that is one IDF soldier being killed or two, and skirmishes, whether that is Palestinians themselves after this ceasefire, which we saw in the streets of Gaza, right? Is that all we want to have happen is a...
That's a crazy way to put that. Is she talking about Hamas like executing people? We're talking about a authoritarian regime that was executing people in the streets, and she calls it Palestinians themselves. That seems a bit misleading.
A lasting peace between Israel and the Palestinians. That is it.
Okay,
That is utterly clueless.
I want to move on.
I'm sorry, but Katie Miller does not know what she's talking about, because Donald Trump is the most clueless president about this stuff. Sure, he's throwing his weight around trying to make sure that there isn't a ceasefire because he's desperate to get some kind of Nobel Peace Prize for peace or whatever, or portraying himself as the peace president, but he will not do the minimum that is required for a long and just peace, and that is Palestinians to be free. And a president who doesn't understand that Palestinians being a free people in their own land is a prerequisite is not going to achieve long-lasting peace.
Would you rather war continue? Would you rather the hostages still be...
No, I'd rather the conflict be solved. I'd rather Israel be isolated diplomatically and militarily and financially until it ends its brutal occupation over Palestinian territories and allows Palestinians to be free. That's how you solve the problem.
No, you just keep
That's quite a leap.
saying not
be isolated diplomatically.
What did she just say?
And lasting peace.
Would you rather war continue? Would you rather the hostages still be...
No, I'd rather the conflict be solved. I'd rather Israel be isolated diplomatically and militarily and financially until it ends its brutal occupation over Palestinian territories and allows Palestinians to be free. That's how you solve the problem.
No, you just keep saying nonsense.
All right, I do think of all the things to attack Donald Trump. All right. Of all the things to attack Donald Trump about, him actively trying to wage peace and maybe getting a Nobel Peace Prize seems to me the least problematic thing about Donald Trump. To have a Republican American president who actively seeks peace, not war, should be celebrated by everybody, right? So I think this is what I mean about Trump derangement syndrome. When people can't even give him credit for trying to find peace. What's wrong with this?
You can't give him credit. Somebody who funds a genocide and then decides to arbitrarily put a stop to it briefly by putting some pressure on Israel to cut it out, and who basically encourages Israel to bomb Iran, and then 12 days later takes credit for having stopped that war. You can't be the initiator of war and genocide and then try to take credit for being the peace president because you put a stop to your own nonsense. That is not how it works.
Let's be honest. October 7th is what started this.
Oh, I want to switch gears.
Palestinians were being killed before.
All right, hang on.
Several hundred Palestinians were killed in 2023 before October 7th.
All right. We are moving on. We are going to move on briefly to a couple of other topics I wanted to mention. Katie, while I've got you talking to me, I wanted to mention this was where you and Jake Tapper got into it over the former White House Press Secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. Let's take a look.
She is quite incompetent to do the job, right? This is what Republicans have been saying for years now, is that she is just another evidence that DEI doesn't work, whether that's in the White House in your press secretary role, or whether that's an air traffic controller, an air pilot, whether that...
They're just going to throw that word out there anytime they see somebody with brown skin. Like, it's just... it's become like a coded way that they can just say patently racist shit, that's your doctor. You want to hire the best for the role. It's kind of clever what they did, because they found a way to just mainstream a slur without like saying a slur.
Not just based on skin color.
Yeah, they used to say like urban. Yeah, that's true.
Jake, why did she get the job over John Kirby?
Well, why are we assuming that she, as a black LGBT, gay woman, is DEI, but a white woman who is behind the podium right now, which DEI initially started as affirmative action, which was about affirmatively hiring women and minorities? Why is one DEI and the other is not?
Why did she get the job over John Kirby? Because as everyone has said this week, she is woefully incompetent.
She had the job long before John Kirby.
I will just say she used to be a commentator on CNN, then she was one on MSNBC, and she was good at that.
Like why is Stephen Miller's wife doing fucking CNN panels and Piers Morgan? It's like, what are you doing? Like, how are you a part of all of this?
Like, I mean, I'm without getting into the job I thought she did as press secretary.
And then she's like She's like a 2019 like Twitch poll streamer with like 50 viewers going on a panel just like looking for their big shot, for their like big break. That's the level that she's at with it. The silly straw men, like, you know, not answering the question, like answering a question with like a totally irrelevant question.
Secretary, I thought it didn't seem crazy to me because she was eloquent as a commentator.
Why is she trained every 4 sentences to say she is a black, queer, LGBTQ woman? Because that's how she's been promoted her entire career.
Look at the smugs, like, bro, this lady is fascinating. And then you look at her face and it's like this self-satisfaction in her face, like, oh God, I look so good in that fucking clip, you know? Oh man, this lady, bro.
You know, I thought it was an interesting debate case.
Did you say, did you hear when I said she was a DEI hire?
I mean, on her book tour, all we've heard from Corinne Jean-Pierre is her repeatedly saying how proud she was to be a black, queer, LGBTQ woman. Let's take a look.
As a black woman, as a person who's also LGBTQ. As a black woman, I am a black woman, I am a queer woman, I am an immigrant. Being a black woman, as a black woman myself, that is the thing that I understood as a black woman, is that I meant a lot to people because of the communities that I represented. And whether it was women of color, black women, queer community, LGBTQ community, immigrant, and as a black woman, and
Tim Miller and her got into it a little bit. We didn't even watch that video, but they got into it a little bit. You know, I'm not going to comment on the language that she uses. I'll just reiterate that her attitude about Joe Biden, I think, is bad. She left the Democratic Party and became an independent because the Democratic Party pushed Joe Biden out of the race in 2024. That's just the wrong attitude to have about politicians. I don't care if you work for that politician. On a certain level, I can appreciate the loyalty. You know, if it was a different kind of arena besides politics, I would be more sympathetic to the tendency towards loyalty. But this is fucking politics. The outcome of races impacts the lives of billions of people. American elections impact the rest of the world. And there emerged a certain point in that race in 2024 when it became clear that Joe Biden was not going to win. He had no path. We were looking at a brutal map. And I don't care if Joe Biden stuck his neck out for you. I don't know anything about their history, but I don't care any kind of personal favors that Biden did to elevate her. I don't care if their personal relationship was very warm. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, that relationship doesn't matter. Joe Biden does not matter in June or July, whenever that debate was, of 2024. There's also a thing called self-sacrifice. Like, put your own ego aside for the good of the country. And I don't know. I just like this whole thing of her like coming out with a book and then announcing that she's leaving the party, which just seems so cynical. Are you leaving the party because you genuinely are pissed about Joe Biden being pushed out of the party? Or are you doing it as like a gimmick to sell books? Like, I just don't. And it just pushes the wrong attitude, you know? Like, that attitude is everything that's like wrong with the Democratic Party currently. There's way too much deference going on right now. And it's keeping the party in a state of like stasis. I'm skeptical when people are like, we got to clean house and just wipe out the entire Democratic Party and rebuild it with completely new blood. I hate that idea. That seems like, okay, hang on. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. But there are problems in the party with leadership. There's just way too much deference going on, and it's holding the party back, I think. And I think like her whole thing with that is just so emblematic of why the party needs serious reform. They're just too stuck in this kind of thinking.
I have my queerness too.
I mean, as an advertisement for DEI gone wrong, there you have it in her own words. Right? All she could do to justify her performance, in which, to remind everybody, for 2 years she kept telling us how brilliantly cognitively aware Joe Biden was, when it was quite obvious that the complete opposite was true. So she was lying from that podium. And I don't care about her skin color or sexuality, but my God, she cares about it. And so when people talk about DEI, and they look at the way she's been handling her book tour, all they're hearing is identity politics. That the reason we should rate her as a press secretary is because she was a black queer woman. Well, sorry, I don't. I rate you on whether you are any good in your job.
If you read her New Yorker interview that she did, she gives an excuse for that, the fact that Joe Biden was wrongfully kicked off the ticket, and that's why she left the Democratic Party. It's not because the Democratic Party did anything wrong. Right? She perpetrated the biggest fraud in the American people. But yet she also says Kamala shouldn't have been the presidential nominee, but also says Kamala was wronged because she's a black woman, she should have been more celebrated as the nominee. She has so many hypocrisies in one sentence, but then every other sentence talks about her black queerness. And at a certain point, you either stand on the merit that you are qualified to do the job, which we all know after watching 2 years of her every day give this very terrible press conferences, that she wasn't qualified to do the job. And to me, that is emblematic of the larger problem of the last 4 years of the Biden administration, in which people were not chosen based on their merit or their qualifications. They were chosen solely based on their race. And whether you saw that again with pilots in the sky or your doctor or air traffic controllers, which if you looked at when President Trump came in on January 6th, there was literally qualifications that said, we preference the hiring.
Like flight data is something that we have such a fucking enormous sample size for. Like, how many flights occur within the United States every day? Not 500,000, 45,000 per day. So 45,000 times 365, 45,000 times 365. So there's 16.5 million flights within the United States every year. Wouldn't we know, like for sure know, that DEI policies led to dangerous conditions, bad outcomes? That's a huge fucking sample size. So where is the evidence that DEI policies got anybody hurt or created any kind of dangerous, unsafe conditions? It's so fucking ridiculous.